I heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord. I think I may have figured out what that chord is. That famous line comes from the song Hallelujah, written by Leonard Cohen and released in 1984. At the time, to a completely uninterested audience. The song was probably made the most famous by Jeff Buckley, who released his cover version 10 years later in 1994. And despite its slow start, it has since become a worldwide hit, and many people have become intrigued by the opening lines to this song. Was there really a secret chord that David played? And if so, what was it? In answering that question, we first of all have to answer a different one. Is there any deeper meaning to the lyrics to this song? Or are they just cleverly written but just there for effect? Is this just a great lyric and nothing more? Or did Leonard Cohen work to craft this song in a way that suggests perhaps there is more meaning to it than first meets the eye? Hallelujah has a fascinating history. For a song that flopped when it was first released, Leonard Cohen put an incredible amount of blood, sweat and tears into its composition. The final studio version has 4 verses. Do you know how many he wrote to get to that final 4? 150. Cohen agonized over getting the lyrics right to this song. Its composition famously reduced him to sitting in his underwear on the carpeted floor of his room at the Royalton Hotel in New York, filling notebooks and banging his head against the floor. And do you know how long he spent writing Hallelujah? 5 years. According to Rolling Stone, Bob Dylan once asked Leonard Cohen how long it took to write Hallelujah. 2 years, Cohen told him. It actually took him 5 years to write the song. And when it was done, his label didn't even want to release the album it appeared on. This song was crafted like a masterpiece. Michelangelo literally spent less time completing the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. So there really is a very good chance that significant thought has gone into the deeper, hidden meaning of the lyrics. So we can answer that question, yes. There is a good chance that Leonard Cohen embedded some deeper meaning into the lyrics of this song. And so we can also go on to say that there is at least a chance that the secret chord referenced in the first verse is more than just a clever device to intrigue the listener. There might actually be one to discover. You only need to look at the time and effort he invested to realise it is at least a possibility. Now, some of those other 150 verses that Cohen wrote did actually see the light of day in various live versions and similar. But today, we're mainly concerned with just the first verse. So let's have a quick read through it. I've heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord. But you don't really care for music, do you? It goes like this: the 4th, the 5th, the minor fall, the major lift, the baffled king composing Hallelujah. So this whole verse is the secret chord verse. It's the one where, if we choose to see a deeper meaning there, we could say Cohen laid out a kind of trail of breadcrumbs for us to follow. So, as we try to figure out what this secret chord is, just for a bit of fun, let's start with hypothetical breadcrumb number 1, David. Here, Cohen is referencing King David, a major figure in the Old Testament. David was the king of ancient Israel who ascended to the throne of Judah in 885 BC, according to some historians. David was a musician king, known as a prolific songwriter and a gifted harpist. In fact, many paintings of King David show him holding a harp. An ancient document found at Qumran in Palestine claims that David wrote over 4,000 songs. Tradition attributes 73 of the 150 poems of the biblical book of Psalms to him as well. Psalm 144 depicts David playing the 10-stringed lyre, which some even suggest he invented. So, a 10-stringed lyre. That's important because if we're going to figure out what this hypothetical secret chord that David played was, we first need to know what instrument he most likely played it on. The instrument most associated with King David today is a kind of lyre, a kind of mini-harp, called a kinnah. Here's what the Encyclopaedia Britannica says. Kinnah, the ancient Hebrew lyre, the musical instrument of King David. Medieval writers often mistakenly called it a harp. We there see a reference to the historian Josephus, who in his records confirmed that this instrument was a 10-stringed lyre or mini-harp. So that is step 1 completed. We've got the instrument King David was most likely using to play this secret chord on, if he ever played it at all. But we're not going to be able to figure anything else out unless we can first establish how that instrument was tuned. So now I would like to introduce you to Suzanne Haïk-Ventura. Born in 1912, she was a French musicologist who dedicated much of her life to deciphering the music system used in ancient biblical compositions. The book and recording she produced in 1976, called The Music of the Bible Revealed, has both its detractors and supporters, but her work has now been accepted as a firmly scientifically established conclusion by some academic sources. So, what did probably the world's foremost expert on the tuning of ancient instruments say about the kinnah? The best article I could find was on harpspectrum.org. This article suggests that, on the basis of her work, the 10-stringed lyre should be tuned as shown, from A to C, effectively using all the white notes on the piano for each intervening string. This is a 16-string lyre, and these 10 strings have been tuned to those exact specifications. So this is the closest I've been able to get to, historically speaking, the same instrument and the same tuning as King David would have used. We have available the right amount of strings on the right kind of instrument in the right tuning. We are now narrowing things down, and identifying the secret chord, if there is one, is becoming a little more feasible. But before we press on, let's look at those lyrics one more time and see if there are any more clues. I've heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord, but you don't really care for music, do you? It goes like this: the 4th, the 5th, the minor fall, the major lift, the baffled king composing hallelujah. Look at those lyrics. He's telling us what the chord is. I heard there was a secret chord. It goes like this. But then he goes on to play not a chord, but a chord sequence, and he's naming chords that are anything but secret as he plays them literally in the body of the lyrics. Hallelujah is in the key of C, the same key as King David's harp. Anyone familiar with music theory will be aware that each key has 7 basic chords, and here are those chords in the key of C. You can number those chords and then follow along with the lyrics, because Cohen is literally naming the chords he's using by number and genre, meaning major or minor, as he goes. It goes like this: the 4th, the 5th, the minor fall, the major lift, the baffled king composing hallelujah. If you have a trained musical ear, you might have noticed that only one chord in that sequence could not be played properly on King David's lyre. This instrument has been tuned diatonically, which means you can't play chords that include notes outside of the C major scale. Every chord in this sequence can be played easily and simply on King David's lyre, except one, and it's the chord he plays as he sings the word composing. And that chord is an E major in the key of C. You can play E minor, but that's not the chord he uses. Leonard Cohen makes this chord an E major. He makes that 3 chord major instead of minor, and that is our one and only candidate for the secret chord in this song, a major 3 chord. Remember, in the lyrics he literally says, I heard there was a secret chord, and he then says, it goes like this. He then plays a sequence, literally naming all the non-secret chords, and plays only one single chord that he doesn't name, and that chord also would not have been available on King David's harp. If it actually exists, there is only one candidate for the secret chord, And that is an E major, which is actually played with a G sharp in the bass on Cohen's original recording. But is that it? Is that the disappointing, anticlimactic identity of the secret chord, E major? No, thankfully there's more. We are about to go off on a little bit of a necessary tangent to explain it. But while we do that, I want you to keep just one thing in your head. Not the name of the chord, not E major, but the number of the chord. Chord 3. Because the actual musical chord itself is just another breadcrumb. It's not the destination, it's the final signpost pointing to the destination. But before I can lead you to that conclusion and over the finish line, we need to take a closer look at the lyrics and the story they tell. We've already looked at verse 1, here's verse 2. Your faith was strong, but you needed proof. You saw her bathing on the roof. Her beauty and the moonlight overthrew you. She tied you to a kitchen chair, she broke your throne and she cut your hair. And from your lips she drew the hallelujah. So this is one of the stories of King David from the Bible. He saw a married woman called Bathsheba bathing on the roof of her house. He fell in love with her from a distance and started a passionate affair with her, which, according to the story, had ruinous consequences. But do you see in that last line that in this retelling of the David and Bathsheba story, from your lips she drew the hallelujah? Hallelujah literally means God be praised. It's as if he's reinterpreting the story, as if that affair was something to thank God for. Let's look at another verse. This time it's one of the live verses. Well, there was a time when you let me know what's really going on below, but now you never show that to me, do you? But remember when I moved in you, and the holy dove was moving too, and every breath we drew was hallelujah. At this point, it looks to me a little bit like Cohen is relating that passionate love affair that David had with Bathsheba to something that he also experienced himself. He and the woman no longer speak, but he looks back on their moment of true love and remembers it not just as a moment to thank God for, but literally as a moment in which God was active and present. It wasn't something to feel guilty about, it wasn't something to be ashamed of, but a literal gift from God. He was literally right there, blessing their union. We saw that in the previous verse about David and Bathsheba as well. It's as if Cohen is suggesting that an experience of true love should hold no guilt or shame, whatever the circumstances in which it arose. And that exact same attitude of gratitude towards God rather than guilt for a wild, passionate love affair is also visible in the final verse. I did my best, it wasn't much. I couldn't feel, so I tried to touch. I've told the truth, I didn't come to fool you. And even though it all went wrong, I'll stand before the Lord of Song with nothing on my tongue but hallelujah. And I believe that that is the central message of this whole song. All true love is the gift of God, and when true love happens, God is right there as the third participant, blessing that union. So there, we've seen the theme that runs through the whole song. Let's be honest, it seems to be kind of talking about doing something that many people consider wrong, which is having an affair. Now, when we look at the first verse, I think there's a little bit of wordplay going on here. He talks about the minor fall and the major lift. And I don't think that's just talking about what the chords are doing. I think it's also wordplay, talking about King David's fall, as in fall from grace, fall into sin. And possibly Cohen's as well, if this was written autobiographically. Whatever the love affair is that this is written about, it didn't necessarily happen in the most moral way. It was an affair. It was a minor fall. But it resulted in a major lift, an experience of heavenly ecstasy that proved God was actually in the relationship. I think the minor fall being followed by a major lift is not just a reference to the movement of the chords, but also to the whole theme of the song. And so, at last, we come to the final reveal. Let's list out what we know so far. We've established that the secret chord in a musical sense is chord 3. This song is full of biblical references from the Old Testament, and the lyrics tell the story of a forbidden but nonetheless true love, which involved 3 participants, the man, the woman, and the holy dove. God. We've seen that there is a little bit of symbolic wordplay going on in that first verse, but there's also a little bit more. Remove the letter H. It's not a chord of 3. It's a chord of 3. Ecclesiastes 4 verse 12 says, "Though one alone may be overpowered, 2 can resist, but a cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken." The final thing that unlocks everything we've seen so far is a very famous line from the ancient Hebrew scriptures that Cohen knew so well. This is a Bible verse from the Jewish scriptures that is most commonly applied to the relationship of a man and a woman with God's blessing. A chord of 3. The secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord wasn't an actual musical chord of 3. Perhaps that's why he said, "You don't really care for music," right there in the lyrics afterwards. Maybe that was a clue. Cohen is saying that the secret chord, the thing that really pleased God, was his union with Bathsheba. Controversial. He's kind of turning the Bible story on its head and saying, forget all the rules and regulations. David's affair with Bathsheba was a moment of true love, a gift from God in which God was present and gave his blessing. The whole message of the song seems to be, if it's a moment of true, passionate love, even if it's short-lived, and even if it's an affair and could have serious consequences, God is still the third person in that moment of love, both giving it as a gift to both people and blessing that moment. So, the secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord was a chord of 3, in more ways than one. Having studied this song, I really do believe that Cohen wrote this about something private but autobiographical. I think the David and Bathsheba story was symbolism for something much more personal. I think he was looking back on some wild moment of love he had in his life and realising that despite their eventual estrangement, God had been there as the third strand of that relationship as well, and that one day Cohen would stand before the Lord of Song, looking back on that relationship, feeling no guilt, with nothing on his tongue but hallelujah.